Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Shena Tubbs. Let's begin. Hey, welcome to the latest episode of Black Girls Heal. So this is going to be a special episode. If you can tell by the title, it is Ask Shena. So way back in the day, I've been podcasting for a little bit over 2 years now, and I had a previous podcast before this one. And even before I started podcasting, and this might have been even in my teenage years, if I'm correct, but back when Dr. Laura was really big and kind of her own household name as far as a radio show advice person. Now, honestly, I never was like a big listener of her show, but I knew who she was. I knew what she did, and I remember thinking that is so cool that she gets to answer people's questions that call in, and she's like helping change lives. Of course, things are differently if you were to look her up now. She's still doing a little bit about what she's doing, but things have changed. But that's all I'm going to say about that. I just want to acknowledge that I am aware of how things changed, but just to give you the origin story. But I say that because my intentions with having a podcast originally were because I wanted to be a Dr. Laura type person, but I didn't have an audience. My first podcast was about sex and love addiction. I was just in my private practice. I was still growing it. And so I said, maybe I'll do this for a while and maybe I can find a different way to help people. And so that's why Love Junkie, I tried to be as specific and direct as I could, as if I was talking to someone, as if someone had asked me a question about a topic and I was giving him or her everything that I knew at the time, because at that time, Love Junkie, when I first started, was for both men and women. And so full circle, as I've grown, as I've condensed all the multiple things that I've done, I am more clear on what Black Girls Heal is. It's a platform that helps women heal from relational trauma to improve your self-worth, break the cycles of unhealthy relationships, and feel enough. And my entry point is by helping women who struggle with intimacy disorders like love addiction, love avoidance, and love anorexia. And we do that by working on our family traumas and inner healing. I got it. And so with that said, with me now having a lovely group of women that are faithful listeners and followers, it is time to have Ask Shena be a part of our regular rotation. So I sent out an email to those ladies who are on my listserv, and I said that I was going to start having a question and answer format on the podcast, and if they had any questions that they wanted to have answered, to go ahead and apply, submit what was going on, and if I thought it would be a good fit, if they provided a story that I thought would be helpful for others to hear, and that actually was on topic with what we talk about here at Black Girls Heal, then I would meet with them for a mini call to discuss what they need and to hopefully give them some advice. And so the call you're going to hear today is from one of the listeners. And so I hope that this is helpful, because you get to listen to someone who is just like you, who is trying to figure this stuff out, just like you are. And this is actually something that is an active part of each one of our group coaching programs here at Black Girls Heal. So we have Learn to Thrive, which is our main group coaching program. And this is the one that is focused and dedicated towards helping you break the cycles of unhealthy relationships and growing your self-worth and build a life where you're actually thriving versus being dependent on other people, versus losing yourself in relationships, versus repeating some of the same patterns that you may have in friendships and even family relationships. And we do that full stop. And there is a weekly question and answer portion, a weekly group coaching call. And so what you're going to hear today is what I do for each of my students who attend the calls. That we will talk about what's going on with you, that I'll answer your questions. And actually, the calls with my students are like 100 times better because with them, I actually know their family histories. I know what's going on with their friendships. I know who they're dating and who they're not dating. I know what their goals are. And I keep up with them, and we're able to have interactions and talk throughout the week, not just one time a week, but throughout the week, as long as they are, showing up and participating, of course. And so I think that this would be really helpful for any of you ladies who were like, you know what, I really want to join, but I really feel like I need to have someone that I can talk to. And you saw that there was a Q&A, but maybe you just thought that these group coaching calls were me showing up in a Facebook group and I'm talking to you through a screen and you have to type your question and hope that I catch it in time for you to get the whole story out, and hoping that someone else doesn't interject and I get distracted and talk to them and answer their question. That's not what it is. It's what you're going to hear on this call, but so much more intimate and connected and helpful and useful because I'm coaching and I'm mentoring you and we're doing life together. And I'm walking alongside you while you figure this whole life and healing thing out. So let's go ahead and jump into this call. So as Shena calls, we'll always start off with me just asking our guest what she would like to talk about, and we will dig into it there. These calls are always 15 to 20 minutes max, so there is a lot of crunch time. These are women that I've not had a coaching relationship with, so we really do try to focus on just one question and getting in as much support and as much guidance as possible. In this particular call, there was some delay in the platform that we were using. And so there are a couple times that it may sound that like we are talking over each other, but it's just the delay. And I've edited out all of the gaps so you don't have to listen to the long pauses. And then finally, you will hear me in this episode talk a lot about our program that's coming out, the Healed and Loved Woman. I don't do this in all the calls. I had several other calls where I did not mention it. But for this listener, just the things that she was mentioning, I knew that the Healed and Loved Woman would be an amazing program for her. And so every time I was about to answer, it was like, this is going to go into so much more detail, but here is where you can start, and giving her some practical things that she can start right now today. For those of you who don't know, this episode is sponsored by the Healed and Loved Woman, which is going to be my new program that was actually previously called the Trauma Recovery School, and it has been redone and revamped. And so for a year, I will be taking women on a journey to heal from relational trauma, improve their self-love, improve their self-worth, get in touch with their bodies, and heal their trauma reactions of feeling stuck, learn how to regulate their emotions, redefine their relationships with their families, change and challenge their inner critic to replace that negative self-talk with self-compassion, and a whole lot more. It's going to be amazing. And so you can learn more by going to thehealedandlovedwoman.com, getting on that wait list. Doors open on December 3rd. But everybody, no matter what level you invest in, will have access to having these type of calls with me during every group coaching call. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into the call. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. So, Allie, can you tell me a little bit about what you would like to talk about today?
Um, well, I basically wanted to talk about how you can build and preserve a sense of your own value in relationships. I've been through very troubling relationships in the past, but I'm currently in a relationship that's actually really good. And it's coming on the heels of many years of therapy, working through codependency. But I still have trouble accepting that there's someone in my life who cares and is willing to support me and who's available, emotionally and physically, and like just someone who's present. Um, and it's interesting that should be so difficult for me. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I accept, this love that's being offered to me after so many years of chasing after it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I talk often on the podcast about how trauma, what happens is sometimes we can get accustomed to negative things happening in our life because it's what we expect. Our bodies, our minds, our spirits are constantly on high alert for the next shoe to drop, for what the catch is, for something bad that's going to happen. And our bodies don't know how to be happy, how to be regulated and just stay in the middle, because anytime we have been content, that means that there's something coming up behind us. And so, what I make up about what you're saying right now is you are in a relationship with someone who's healthy and emotionally available, and you are looking for an exit strategy because for you, it's unsafe to be happy. It is unsafe to trust someone, to open up, because what if they use it against you? What if this is really just a farce and they end up being like people from your past, right? And so that's part of it, is learning that you are going to have to learn as part of your healing how to be happy, and that life can actually be easier, that it doesn't have to be full of drama, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So what questions, if any, does my answer bring up for you? Is there anything else about this that you wanted to elaborate on?
Well, I understand what you're saying about the aspects of trauma and how it is kind of difficult to just embody that feeling of happiness and to know that I can be safe and that life can be easy. Like, I hear you saying it, and it feels like my body's kind of rejecting it, even as I'm speaking right now. So are there practical ways to do this? Because, you know, I don't want to move forward in the relationship always feeling like the other shoe is going to drop, or feeling like, or just reacting badly to, triggering things that he might say, and then having to apologize for it afterwards. I want to know how I can get to a place where that doesn't even happen,
Mm-hmm.
or if that's possible. Is it possible to be in a place where I can feel safe and I can be happy, and you know, without even exploring it, you did tap on the fact that I have lived through a lot of trauma, and it's rough, And I think one of my biggest questions is my lifetime going to just be reacting to things and then kind of cleaning up the mess that comes out of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at the time that we are recording this, I'm going to be opening doors
Mm-hmm.
for the Healed and Loved Woman in a few weeks. And so I really encourage you to join that, since you're asking about practical tips, because what you're
Okay.
needing is how to get regrounded in your body, learn how to enjoy what is going on in your life, and also get to the roots of what's going on and then unlearn them. So, practical things that you can do right now are getting grounded in the facts of the relationship. So, um, getting in touch with, well, what are the fears that I have? Are the fears that he is going to leave me? Are the fears that he is going to lie to me? Are the fears that he is just like fill in the blank? Um, is a fear that maybe you're too much, or that you're not enough for him?
And then, with that being part of your fear, then what are the facts of the situation? So, are the facts being what has he actually said to you? Has he ever said, I can't stand you? I can't stand being in this relationship? Has he ever left? Has he ever punished you by emotionally withdrawing, right? And not only that, what has he actually done? Has he moved towards you whenever you are upset? Has he asked you to share how you felt? Has he told you that your feelings are important to him? And with that, those are the things that you need to constantly remind yourself to get grounded in the reality and not the fantasy and fear that has plagued you for a while. And so, um, again, we talk more about that in the program, but that is a really good place for you to start because your mind will kind of take you away. As far as will you always be struggling like this? So there's a both and. The first one is when babies come out of the womb, we are ever trusting. We are open and loving, and all of the insecurities and fears that we have are learned, which means that they can be unlearned, right? So are you stuck being like this forever and ever? No, because this is not how you were made. These are all basically coping mechanisms, and you can learn different ones, right? You can learn how to get more centered and grounded in actually who you are instead of always being on the defense. Now, the both and part, or the second part of that, is, we are constantly, as long as we are alive, going to be learning different things about the world and about ourselves as long as we're open to it, right? And so our healing process is forever. I mean, I think there's no way that I can say that. So what'll happen is the things that are triggers and things that are hard for you right now, as long as you start your healing journey, there will come a day when those are not as hard to do anymore, even if you have a tendency or a temptation to be explosive or reactive. You have a whole set of tools and skills that you can do instead to help you communicate and to help you express what you need instead of what you used to do before, be it withdrawing, be it raging, whatever it may be. However, once you do that, with your newfound awareness and being in touch with yourself, there's going to be more stuff that you're going to find and be like, oh, here's another wound that was underneath this one, or here's something else, right? And so that's going to be more of your journey. But even with that, I know that could probably sound really overwhelming, but the deeper you go into your healing, the more you're able to have compassion and grace and self-love for yourself, and just accepting who you are and where you are, even with your flaws, even with your imperfections, because you know that is just part of being human. And so, I'm not trying to plug the Healed and Loved Woman too much, but I mean, just hearing you talk about what you're talking about, I think that would be a good next step for you. And if not here, then your own personal work. Are you in therapy? Are you doing anything outside that's helping you heal?
Yes, I am working with a therapist. I've been working with her for about 5 years now. And I'm actually in school to become a therapist as well. So there's extra work on that side. A lot of self-investigation work that goes on.
Okay.
I'm not a great meditator, but I try to work it in. Yeah, and I've been exploring movement practices that are supposed to ground you and get you more in touch with your body. So I have been doing some things, and they've obviously been helpful. Like they've brought me this far. But like you said, there is always something, and I'm always surprised at how much there is. You feel like you've worked through one thing, and then you find something underneath, and it's like, oh no, am I ever going to be done? No, 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 I guess not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But could I bring up another thing that was it was part of my original question?
Yeah. Can I ask a quick
as
question
I
first?
contemplate. Yeah, sure.
Just since you are in therapy, I'm interested in how that is going for you.
Oh, well, I think it's going well. I didn't pause because it's not going well. I paused because it's been one of the greatest learning experiences of my life. Um, I'm not sure how much I can give you about my history, but I was basically neglected as a child, um, and relationships, are probably the hardest aspect of my life. They always have been, and my therapist has taught me how to be in relationship and what it looks like to be in relationship with someone with all of the difficulties, and without necessarily spelling it out for me, she's shown me what it's like to have conflict but not abandon someone, what it's like to work through issues without abandoning someone, what it's like to bring your stuff to the table without fear that the other person is going to be overwhelmed and abandon you. So I've definitely gotten an education in that respect. But it's also been weird because sometimes you want your therapist to be more than they can be to you. They know everything about you if you've learned to trust them enough, um, and yet they're not a friend. They can take on the form of like a parental figure, but they're not your parents. So sometimes it's difficult for me to negotiate, like what actually is the nature of this relationship that is so important to me. But at the same time, it's given me, I think, a lot more tools that, now I am able to be in a relationship with someone who's much healthier than the people that I dealt with in the past. So overall, I would say, it's been excellent.
That's awesome. I love
Difficult but
hearing
excellent.
that.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I love hearing when people have such wonderful experiences with their therapists, and especially when I hear that people have long-term relationships with their therapists versus coming in and dipping out or jumping from person to person, as long as
Mhm.
there's not a trauma, because a trauma between you and the therapist, because you are in a long-term partnership with this person, and
Yeah.
that's also evidence of your own healing. And sometimes people can not want to go there with their therapist because they may feel like they're getting too close, or getting to know a little bit too much. And so kudos to you and kudos to her for helping you.
Oh, thank you. I'll let her know.
Awesome. But yeah, what is your other question that you had?
Yeah. Um, um, so as I look forward to the future, I think about motherhood, and it's legitimately scary. I have these really ambivalent feelings about what damage I might do to any children, not wanting to repeat mistakes, feeling like I'm kind of doomed to repeat those mistakes, but also feeling like maybe I'm not worthy of being a mother because because of what I have gone through, and feeling like I cannot provide what is necessary for them to grow into healthy people. Do you have anything around that you could say?
Yeah, so just clarification, you do want to have children, but you're afraid that you may hurt the
Yes.
children that you have.
Yes.
hmm Yeah, so I would say that the fact that you have some fear, and what I would actually call is possibly pieces of humility around it, probably means that you are more qualified. Not probably, it means that you're more qualified than you're giving yourself credit for. Because what that means is that you're going to go into motherhood with this awareness and this sensitivity to the fact that you are connecting to and loving and teaching how to love this innocent human being, right? And so you are going to be more present than it sounds like the people who were your caregivers and guardians were, of the emotional needs of your child. You're probably going to be more quick to repair and resolve any issues that are happening, and be mindful of what he or she needs. Because something that people get mixed up is that they think that the best way to have a healthy childhood is for there to be an absence of trauma, and that is not the case. One, because it's not possible. Just to put that out there, it is not possible, because your child will have a human parent. I mean, even if you were to do everything right? We live in a unfair world. You being a woman of color, you are going to have a child that is a child of color in a racist and discriminant society. There are people who are bullies. There are people who just have bad days and they have their own trauma. Your child is going to face some things, but what is going to help him or her feel whole and healed and loved is that they have a secure home base to come to process those issues, that they have a sense of learning what it's like to express their emotions and have their emotions be valued and heard, that people will actually apologize to them, that if an adult rages at them and takes out her feelings on her child because she's had a rough day, once she's able to recenter, to come to her child and say, you know what, Johnny, what happened, how mommy yelled at you, that was not about you, and I'm so sorry. Mommy is working on being in charge of her feelings, because a child needs to know, one, that his entity is valuable. Also, he needs to learn how to take ownership of his own actions, and also that he does not deserve it, and how to treat other people in a way that he deserves as well. So that is my long way of saying that, you are imperfect, and that's okay, because everybody's imperfect, and as long as you're constantly working on it and staying present in that, it is fine.
Wow, thank you for that. I think that's the first time I've heard that. It's really not possible to have a childhood that is completely free of trauma. That is really helpful. It takes off a lot of pressure in terms of what I would be doing to protect this person or these people.
Yeah. It's relieving, and then also as a mother, it's scary. I'm anticipating which little kids at the playground I'm going to want to have to beat up, if they pick on my son. It's just there's the both hands again. I can't protect him, but can I?
So no, don't get banned from the playground.
Yeah, don't get banned. Isn't Ada's mom a therapist? She was like, yelling at that kid. Yeah. So again, being mindful of myself, being mindful of my own triggers, and planning ahead, what is mine, what is his, and what is the best way that I can equip my son on how to still love himself in the face of criticism, on how to defend himself, on what that means, whether the bullying is because he is a Black kid in class, or because he is smarter, or because there are just kids that just don't like him, and how he can manage that, So all things that I will learn along the way that I don't know yet, right? But I will have to learn. And if I were to say, well, I can't be a mom until I figure out how to mitigate every problem that he will face, then I don't know if I would be able to become a mom, because I'm still learning how to mitigate my own problems every day, right?
Right. That is so true.
Sounds good. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's been super helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Great.
No, I definitely feel like I have some tools going forward. I also have some more knowledge going forward. And I feel a bit more relaxed about, the path ahead. So I really, appreciate being able to talk to you about this.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been great talking with you as well.
There are so many things I loved about that call, but I love getting an opportunity to always talk about the next level after you solve the problem, right? So this podcast does a really good job, in my opinion, and the things that I put out on the newsletters, the Instagram posts, does a really good job on talking about how to identify when you have a problem, where this problem comes from, and how to start the healing process, right? Of course, we do more whenever we're working together, but getting you started on what do I do about this problem that I have right now. And I love getting the opportunity to talk about what do you do when the problem is solved, right? So I've talked about my family trauma. I've gotten to a place where I've broken the cycle of unhealthy relationships. Now I'm in a healthy relationship. Now I'm at the verge of getting everything that I've always wanted. And I still have some fear. And I don't know how to do this. And I don't know how to let myself be happy. What do I do now? Right? And so often we can think that once this one thing is fixed, then everything will be perfect. And that's not the case. We are constantly always going to be growing, evolving, and changing. And so having outside support and help, and the courage and the vulnerability to ask for that instead of thinking, well, I just should be happy. I just should be at a place where I'm good, and shaming yourself and criticizing yourself, because it's about breaking that pattern. And the other things I loved about this call is you just know, in my conversation with Allie, her sharing the both and of her experience with therapy totally just highlights why I've created Black Girls Heal and the things around it in the first place. So if you're just now joining me, I am by trade a licensed professional therapist here in Houston, Texas. I love therapy. I am pro therapy. I think everybody should go to therapy throughout your lifetime. And so with that said, sometimes the question is, well, then why do I have programs and offerings that are not therapy? Why is it that I don't just promote, when people are reaching out for support? I will always point someone to the group coaching program, even if they say, well, I want to work with you individually. Well, I say, that's fine. That's great. We can totally work together. But the group coaching program is a part of it. It is a part of me helping you get to the other side, helping you heal. In groups, y'all, and I've said this before, in groups, we heal quicker, deeper, and with more lasting results. We are relational creatures. And so when we try to do this life thing alone, we're cheating ourselves. And so Allie and her talking about kind of this both and, you're working with a therapist who is so amazing and can be so helpful to you, but there are limitations. So the therapeutic relationship is confined by time. It's confined by also boundaries. A good therapist, when you come into the room, he or she is not going to tell you this is what you should do. He or she is going to open it up for you to facilitate and for you to learn what's the next place for you to go, right? Even if you have a therapist who has a direct style, he or she should pull back and let you be the one who's in charge of your life, right? Because it is your life. You're the one who needs to be the one to build those critical thinking skills and to get in touch with your internal intuitive voice. And that's great, but sometimes, just like Allie said, you need you need a little bit more than that, right? So whether or not it's access and time, whether or not it's just, hey, can you just tell me your opinion? I understand that I'm the one that has the final thought, but what do you think I should do? What is the step-by-step process? How do I shortcut this? How do I get more support when I only have 45 minutes a week for up to years? Maybe I'm the only one who's felt this way on both sides of the chair, as both me being in the therapist chair and then also me being the therapist for some people. Is like, oh my God, like this hour is done already. I have so much more that I want to talk with you about. I have so much more that I want to hear from you. So many more questions, right? And it's like, why is it only once a week? Why can't it be more? And it could be more, but then we think about time and travel and expense. Like, it's just so much. And so what I provide and what we do at Black Girls Heal is a holistic experience to help women get as much as they need in one place, to bridge all those gaps as far as needing more access, more time, more information. Sometimes it's like, if you just give me the information, I'm a smart woman. I can take it and apply it, right? Just tell me where to start. So I really appreciate Allie introducing that, because I worry that it may be confusing. You're a therapist, but primary way of helping people is not one-on-one sessions. No, it's not, because I feel like it's amazing. And I feel like there are gaps, and this is how I want to help meet those gaps. So that is it for this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. If you would like to potentially be a guest in the future, again, stay tuned to my mailing list. If you are not on my mailing list, you can join by downloading our roadmap. So I have a free 5-step roadmap that will help you determine what are your next steps. Should you be battling from love addiction, love avoidance, or love anorexia? And you can get that by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And that link would be in the bio as well. And you'll automatically be added to my mailing list. Same thing as well for the Healed and Loved Woman. If you join that waitlist, you'll also be added to the mailing list. So no need to do both in case you are not in need of both. And you can join the waitlist for that at thehealedandlovedwoman.com. So that is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed and take care of yourselves.